Hello and welcome to the Healthy Living Virtual Expo, hosted today by the Los Angeles Daily News. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Julie Corlett and I'm from the marketing department at Southern California News Group. Just so you know that this session is being taped and a link will be sent to you. We'll also have it on our YouTube channel, so you'll be able to access it at any time. You have the ability to put in questions or in the chat. It's on the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. If you have any, feel free to go to add them, and we will try to get all your questions answered as they come in. So today's session is on burn prevention, education, and safety, and is sponsored by the Grossman Burn Foundation. Our presenters are Barbara Rook and Helena San Marco. I would like to take this time to welcome you guys, and I really look forward to this great session that you have planned for us.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Barbara, and this is my pal, Helena.
Good morning, Barbara.
Before we address that, though, let me just say one thing. This, again, is brought to you by the Grossman Burn Foundation. Everything we are presenting to you is in a packet that we usually hand out when we do this in person. If you are interested in obtaining the packets, plus another item we'll introduce later, please contact www.grossmanburnfoundation.org, and that material will be sent to you free of charge. And that will be repeated later on at the end of the seminar, but just so you know that this material is available to you free. And again, I'm Barbara Rook, and this is Helena San Marco.
Hi, I want to just let you know a little something about me and Barbara. We're both retired we're both retired charge nurses from the Grossman Burn Center. And between us, we have approximately 70 years experience in burn and burn care.
Yes, I started in 1972 as a mere child.
Yeah, well, she's still 9 months older than me, so.
I'm the more mature one. Again, this is burn prevention and care for the more mature adult. I don't like using the word old. I don't like using the word elder. I never know what the age is there. We're just more mature. We've lived long, prosperous, hopefully healthy lives, which we want to keep that way. Next slide, please. So, next slide, please. Okay, we went through this. Again, www.org, grossmanburnfoundation.org. First paper that you will receive if you send for it is the first aid for burn. Most of the papers in this packet that I'm holding repeats itself frequently, and that's only because the more we hear something, the more we see something, the better we retain it. So even though it'll be on many of these pages, I may not repeat it as many times as it's there. First thing to note, and this is of utter importance, is that older adults such as ourselves are more prone to burns because our skin is thinner. You probably have heard the term onion skin. So what damages our skin and what will damage a baby's skin is much different than what will damage someone's skin who's in their 20s, 30s, or 40s. Also, older adults, 65 years and older, are more prone to burn injuries because of this. And about 85% of us who do enter the hospital because of burns are likely to die. So it's really important. That's one of the reasons we do this seminar. Again, the first page is first aid for minor burns. I don't see it up there. Okay. The first thing you do when you get burned is water, water, water. That is the best medicine. It cools the area.
No. Onions, tomatoes, potatoes, bananas, urine,
Soy sauce.
soy sauce. There are several things people put on burns that you could make a salad with, have dinner, and then they put toothpaste on their burn so you can even brush your teeth when you're finished. Water, water, water is the only thing.
It helps prevent the deepening of the burn. If you put something like butter or oil or something like that on a burn, the heat stays in and the burn can get deeper. So that is one of the reasons for water. If you have blisters
Next slide,
next
please.
slide, please. Okay, this is, go to the next slide and we'll get address this. Okay, if you have blisters, as you can see from this slide, these blisters are huge. You can tell right away. That's a blister. It's a second-degree burn. Areas around it may be deeper, but that particular area may be second. Next slide, please. Okay, this is, again, something that can happen to anybody, even beautiful, intelligent women. That would be me. So these are smaller burn, second-degree burns. All right, so this is blisters also designating a second-degree burn. Okay. If the blisters are there, you do not puncture them. The skin beneath the blister is considered sterile. Once that skin is broken, even with a pinprick, it is open to the elements and open to infection. If this happens, you're going to wash the area with soap and water, mild soap, nothing with scrubbing bubbles, not microdermabrasion, a mild soap and water. Use your hands and rub it, rinse it really well, and cover it with a clean, dry, hopefully sterile gauze, as you can pick up at any pharmacy, CVS.
I want to tell you something about that blister, though. Most people think there's water in there, but there's not water in there. What's in there is called plasma, and that's part of your blood. And as long as that's in there, it's going to help fight the infection.
If after doing all of this and you think that you have a minor burn, which you may, and after a day or two, it gets redder, it gets more swollen, it hurts more. Those are signs that something may be going on, and then you're going to want to call for help. You can call your doctor, you can call an emergency room, you can call an urgent care, or you can call the burn center, and that phone number will be given to you also later on in this, okay? But you need to call someone. There's no stupid question. And at our age, we should have remembered that and know that. There is no stupid question. The only stupid question is the question you don't ask. Now we can go back to, just for a second, the first slide you saw was a very red chest of a small child. Thank you, Julie. Okay, this, and the reason I'm showing this is it can be either or. I know what it is, but I'm using it for two reasons. A first-degree burn can be a sunburn, and sunburns can be red, okay?
And painful.
Very painful. The less depth of a burn, so first, second, third being the worst, a first-degree burn is usually the most painful. All those little nerve endings are screaming for help. Usually it's red, okay? No blisters. That could be a sunburn. But if you see this small child, you can also see a blister on the left side where the heart is. It also can be a scald burn, which present totally different than a flame burn, a chemical burn, a contact burn. And a scald burn, a third-degree scald burn, can be extremely red. The difference between a sunburn and a scald burn is if you press the skin on a sunburn, it blanches, it turns white, which means that there is blood supply. On a third-degree scald burn, there is no blanching, there is no blood supply. Next slide, please.
Whoa.
Oh, she doesn't like this one.
That's a third-degree burn. Mostly, you have some reddish areas, you have some seconds mixed in there, but that leathery area in the middle and the white area are definite deep thirds.
Usually I tell people it looks like a white leathery look. If you were to take it, when I first became a burn nurse in 1972, the founder of the burn center, Dr. Richard Grossman, would take a needle, a sterile needle, and he would do dull and sharp. And he would do it to the patient, not to me, thank you. And he would press the burn area. If the patient felt the sharp, it wasn't necessary. Oh, they had to close their eyes. Okay. If they didn't feel it, and if everything felt the same, he knew for sure it was a third-degree burn. Next slide, please. And by the way, a third-degree burn, and we'll explain that later, needs surgery to be repaired. The next slide is kitchen-wise, and it's two-sided. One is English, one is Spanish. And these are very important things to know about in your kitchen. Number one, do not cook tired, under medication that's making you drowsy.
Or don't cook naked.
She loves that one. And don't cook. I want to go to her house when she's cooking. But anyway, and don't cook if you've been drinking. The reason for this is as we have matured, our response time isn't always what it used to be, okay? So it may take us a little longer to jump out of the way or to jump in the way. So,
Or to jump.
or to jump. So if you're going to cook something on the stove, make sure you have a timer or an alarm on your clock, your phone that tells you if you're leaving the room that you have something burning on the stove, only because people forget. And this has happened to many people that I know of. One gentleman left to go to church and forgot that he had left eggs boiling on his stove. And he came home from church and there were all these firemen there. And between the smell and the smoke alarms, they weren't happy. He wasn't happy. So always set an alarm if you're going to leave something cooking on the stove. The other thing to remember, and I wore this purposely for this reason, don't wear what I used to affectionately call schmatas. See this? If you're cooking, anything that dingles and dangles can dingle and dangle onto the stove and catch fire, okay? That goes for towels. When you grab a pot, use a pot holder or a mitt. Do not grab a towel because, as I have discovered, a towel dingle dangles and can also catch fire.
Next slide, please. This young lady, this more mature lady was cooking and her sleeve caught on fire. And you can see the area where the burns are very hard to heal. This particular picture is even after surgery and she still needs quite a bit of work on that.
Yeah, we have to put them in an immobilizer like you would do for surgery and to keep the area away so that the skin can get dressed and have the ability to heal. Okay, the other thing to do, if you're cooking grease, all right, in any pot or pan, make sure you have the lid handy. Okay, if you have a grease fire on the stove, obviously you're going to turn off the stove, but you're also going to slide the pot cover onto that element. Okay, you're not going to drop it because you're going to have a boom. You're not going to pour water on it. Oh my God, it splatters and then you've got a bigger pit. And
then your whole kitchen's on fire.
Right. And you are definitely not going to pick it up and try to bring it to the sink. First of all, you're more important than whatever you were cooking on the stove. You were more important than your $300 pan. That I don't have a $300 pan, but maybe you do. You're more important. So cover it, turn it off. Don't pick it up under any circumstance.
If you pick it up and run with it, you're going to make it a lot worse because as you're running, the wind is blowing.
That comes later. You're on, that comes later. But if you're running, you're going to spill it. Okay, we've had many people who have spilled grease or hot liquid on themselves while cooking. The other thing is we are now hopefully out of pandemic mode and getting together again. So we are cooking for larger groups because we're getting together. If you have a holiday coming up, a family event coming up, and you're cooking a roast or a lot of ribs or whatever, and you're buying one of those aluminum foil containers, buy more than one. If you go to the 99-cent store, it's $1. Buy 2, buy 3. You want to make sure whatever you put your food in is heavy enough that when you take it out of the oven, it doesn't wiggle, wobble, and spill, okay? Helena and I have both been lucky enough to work the day after Thanksgiving. Whenever all of you are shopping, remember those days, we work. And more people come in with turkey grease burns than you can imagine.
They don't come the day they get them because they got to finish their Thanksgiving dinner.
Right, so it's usually the next day that we are inundated with people. The other thing is, if your oven catches fire, okay, so brilliant, intelligent people were cooking, reheating potato pancakes and wanted to crisp them up and put them on a sheet of parchment paper, 7 dozen. The last dozen that went in, this very intelligent, beautiful person decided to talk to her child, one of many, and the oven caught fire. What do? Well, first you tell your children not to yell at you, and then you close the oven door and shut off the oven. Fires are sustained by oxygen. When you turn off the oxygen supply, you are decreasing the possibility of a burn going further.
You're literally smothering that fire.
Right. Fire extinguishers. Fire extinguishers are wonderful. We actually have one in this kitchen. However, they are a false sense of security if you don't know how to use them. When a fire happens in your kitchen, that is not the time to look at your fire extinguisher and try to figure out what to do with it, okay? Forget it's there. If you have a fire extinguisher and if you know how to use it, remember, it's a sweeping motion. You're not putting the nozzle directly above a flame so that it goes like this. You are gently going to sweep it so it doesn't, okay? You're going to stand away from it. I personally keep forgetting how to use mine, even though I'm a burn nurse, so I do everything else. Microwaves. Microwaves are a wonderful invention.
Except if you're cooking the wrong thing in there.
So this, and going back to the picture you saw of the blisters on that person's arm, me, I was told I could puncture a spaghetti squash and put it in the oven, in the microwave, which I did. And when it came out, I said, okay, I'm going to cut it so it cools off. And I no sooner put the knife into the spaghetti squash than it exploded. And there were strands of spaghetti hanging from the ceiling and the microwave and the stove and my arm. And that's how I got hurt. So the microwave is a wonderful object. Remember, things in the microwave, sometimes the outside doesn't feel hot, but the inside is. Always use a mitt or gloves to take it out of the microwave. And when you open it, keep your face away from it. If you've ever cooked vegetables in a pouch, it'll tell you to be careful when you open that pouch because steam can escape. Steam is another burn. Okay? Don't go smelling your food when you take a lid off because you're going to get the steam in your face. What else can I tell you? I think that's about it on that one.
Next slide, please.
Okay, going back to the oven. So this is that handy dandy thing that we were telling you about.
Mine.
It's hers. Oh God, she's so possessive. Okay.
This is the handy dandy thing we were telling you about when you're working with your oven. You'll see this ruler has a notch here. And that notch is to pull the rack. You put that on the rack of the oven and you pull the rack out. This way you're not putting your arm in and burning the top of it or the bottom of your arm on the hot grates. This notch at the top is to push it back into place. It's also a wonderful ruler. It's good to keep your husband in line or your friends or
She does enjoy that. Anybody you want, or you can actually hem. See, it has a ruler on it. You can measure. I mean, it's multi-purpose and it gives the phone number for the Grossman Burn Center and the www.grossmanburnfoundation.org. So very important element. Again, this would be shipped to you with the packet if you so desire. Next slide, please. Okay.
Do we have the thermometer slide? There we go.
My favorite slide. You know, we all think that things are just whatever the temperature is, it is, okay? This slide shows you that water boils at 170 degrees. And I just read a very interesting fact that restaurants actually heat their food and their liquids, restaurants, mind you, starting at 150. Many of our favorite coffee places, Starbucks, Coffee Bean, McDonald's, heat their coffee very, very hot, usually about 170. And if you can see here, 170 is when boiling begins. 155, at 155, you can get a deep burn in 1 second. If you do get coffee in one of these places in a drive-thru, don't put it between your legs.
Whoa.
That can hurt. That could hurt a lot.
In places you don't want it to hurt a lot.
Okay. Most water heaters in a home are set at 155 degrees. It's recommended by all the experts to keep it at 120. Years ago, your dishwasher, if you're more mature like we are, would be heated by your water heater. Nowadays, according to my husband, who knows it all, newer dishwashers have their own heating elements. So you don't have to worry about having your water heater at 150. 120 is warm enough, okay, to do that. A comfortable bath is about 100, which is also very important to remember, only because of our thinner skin, okay, we're going to get burned much more frequently than if not. Okay, so set your water heater at 120. Make sure you test the water before you get into it for a bath or shower. Next slide, please. Okay, so going further, and again, I'm getting the paperwork because I do like addressing the paperwork that's here. Okay, and again, this is repeating itself. So it tells you about oven mitts. It tells you about cooking with grease and having a pot cover. It does tell you about smoke alarms. Smoke alarms are extremely important. Okay, we used to tell people to change their smoke alarm batteries
Every 6 months.
every 6 months. And that was great because we changed our clocks every 6 months. That's changed. So what I recommend is if you have a cell phone, put it in your calendar, put it on a note on your refrigerator. If you don't have stainless steel, and you can put a magnet on your refrigerator, put it somewhere so you remind yourself. And the importance of this is twofold. And I'm going to address it now and I'll address it later. If a smoke detector is not working and something catches fire, you're not going to know about it until it might be too late. Okay. Always have an escape plan. That means if you're in the kitchen, you know how to get out of the kitchen. If you're in a bedroom, you know how to get out of a bedroom. And this also is going to be addressed a little later when we go into it in more depth. Do not, and again, do not wear clothing that's loose and can dingle dangle.
Don't cook naked.
Again, don't you want to go to her house when she's cooking? Okay, never leave food cooking on a stove unattended. Never pour water on a grease fire. And this I am repeating on because I think it's important. Don't cook sleepy and don't heat your home with your stove. Always cool the burn with cool water. The other important thing to remember is you remove the burnt clothing, and if you've burned a hand and you have a ring on, remove your jewelry. Burns tend to swell, and if you wait too long and come to the emergency room or your doctor's office, that ring may need to be cut off. Always remove your jewelry, and whatever clothing is burnt, you don't want to keep that heat in. And if you have any doubt of the depth of the burn or the extent of the burn, please call and ask someone. Again, there's no stupid questions. If a burn is bigger than your palm, if a burn is on a joint, she's demonstrating, your wrist, your elbow, your neck, your fingers, your knee, or your genitalia. Yes, your genitalia, or your face. These are areas of concern and you should call someone to ask the question that you have.
Now, you might call your doctor, and that's fine. I know you trust your doctors, but if he isn't experienced in burns, he might give you the wrong advice, right, Barbara?
Yes, because burns, as I said earlier, should be cleaned, especially if the blister is open, once to twice a day with soap and water and then covered. Many times a doctor will look at a burn and put the same dressing I'm telling you to put on and tell you to leave it for 5 days, 7 days, because that's when an infection can occur. The only time you'll have a dressing put on by a professional would be in our outpatient clinic or in our burn center. And there are dressings you can put on that are supposed to stay on for several days, but not your 4x4s, not your gauze. Okay. Next slide.
It's important that you take that dressing off every day, wash the burn area with soap and water, rinse it, pat it dry, and then redress it.
And reassess it. Remember, redness, pain, those are things of concern. This slide is called the burn safety tips, okay? And again, repeating things. So we're going to go to electrical safety, which is the second thing on this if you're looking at it. Never put a cord underneath a rug. First of all, if you're like me, you can trip over it. If the cord is frayed, you're not going to see it, okay? If you're like me and have carpeting, well, I used to have carpeting, and you're vacuuming, and you vacuum, and I used to love vacuuming and getting lines in my carpet. I like the pattern. I also mow the lawn like that. And now you're over here and you're outside of this beautiful room you've just vacuumed with the beautiful pattern, but the plug is over there. So what do?
You pull it.
Yeah, no, you don't pull it. If you're too tired to walk through this expansive room, sit down and rest. If you can walk over there, if you really must have that pattern, walk over there with the vacuum cleaner, pull the plug out of the wall, and then back out again, leaving the pattern behind. The reason for this is when you go wonka to the wall, you can have a spark. If there's anything around the area, it can catch fire, or it can actually catch fire within the wall itself, something you won't see very easily. The other thing is, don't overuse sockets. Many of us have put more than one. We get those little extension things, the little teeny ones, and we'll put a plug in, a plug in, a plug in, a plug. No, you're not going to do that. That also can cause a fire. Get one of those power strips, plug it in like that, but don't overload the circuit. Light bulbs. Did you know that all of our fixtures have a thing inside?
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? Yeah, they do. And inside it'll say what voltage should go in there. Now, I know as we mature, we need more light. However, if that light doesn't call for a 60 and you're putting a 60 in and it calls for a 20, it can go, all right, which can also cause fire. So these are all things just to remember. Is it going to happen all the time? No. Do you want to be the statistic it happens to? No. We're going to get to electrical burns a little later because that is Helena's favorite. Used to be mine too. Home heating. We don't recommend space heaters. Those are those little square things that go in the middle of a room that usually you trip over the cord. So be careful. We don't recommend it. If you feel you have to have one, make sure you unplug it when you go to bed and you move it out of the way. You don't want people tripping on it, falling on it, forgetting that it's there. Don't use your oven to heat a room. Back in the old days, and I mean old days, when I was a student nurse, people used to use their oven to heat the kitchen and sometimes the rest of the house. I used to use the fire escape outside my dorm room to keep things frozen. I lived in New York, so it kept it frozen.
Except in June.
Except in June. Also, at our more advanced ages, more mature ages, heating pads have become a very popular item. I actually lay on one frequently because I walk a lot. The latter day heating pads usually turn off after 20 minutes, and that's what we recommend. If you're going to sit, stand, lie, whatever on a heating pad, make sure you're not doing it for more than 20 minutes. Older heating pads, like my mother's that I have at home.
I'm going to start a fund me page to get Barbara a new heating
I
pad
have
if anybody's interested.
I have one. My daughter gave it to me. I don't use my mother's anymore. But yes, the older ones do not. I like the GoFundMe page. So, oh, she's a good person, isn't she? Okay, candles and smoking. I love candles. I am a bird nurse who loves candles, and I like the smelly kind. However, I don't leave them unattended. I don't put them near a curtain. I don't put them underneath my, what else things? No, shelves, because my husband tells me it gets them all black. If I leave a room, I put it inside the sink. So it's surrounded by porcelain. I make sure I always blow it out. Never go to sleep. If you think you're going to go to sleep or fall asleep, you blow that sucker out. Okay, or you get the flameless ones, which are very popular and are beginning to look very real. If you're a smoker, and both Helena and I are smokers, so we understand where you're coming from.
No. We were smokers.
Did I say you are?
You said we are.
Oh, no, we're not. No, 13 years and counting, both of us. But if you're a smoker, again, make sure you don't smoke when you're tired. Make sure you put out your cigarette in the ashtray. And actually, I would put a little bit of water in it to make sure. This is a true fact, and this is why the importance of a smoke detector comes in. Someone I loved very dearly lived in an apartment, and a guy who was visiting was smoking and fell asleep, and the cigarette fell between the couch cushions. No one realized this. The smoke detector in the apartment was not working, and at the end, 3 young people in their 20s lost their lives and 2 were badly burned. So again, try not to smoke, make sure you put out your cigarette and get that smoke alarm working. And again, it's the water temperature. So if you're in your bedroom and there is a fire, and this also pertains to earthquakes, people. If you're in your home and there is a fire, You touch your door. If the door is hot, if the handle is hot, you don't open that door. There's flame on the other side of it. If the smoke starts coming into your room, take whatever you can, put it under the door. Stay low to the ground, smoke rises. Crawl if you have to a window, and hopefully you will have one of these items at your bedside, and that would be a small flashlight, again, my 99-cent store with a battery inside, or your phone, which has usually a flashlight in it. And you go to a window and flash that light out the window. The fire department, which hopefully you've called or a neighbor has called, will see that light and know there is someone in that room. So it's very, very important. Again, if you know how to get out of your house, and if you have your escape route. Years ago, they used to have, if you have a 2-story house, they used to have those ladders you would put over a balcony. I don't know if they still sell it, but again, just know a way to get out of your house. Very, very important. Okay, some people are pack rats. I have a 2-story house and I make sure that there is nothing in the way of that staircase. Okay, I make sure I have my glasses and my cell phone and a flashlight on my night table. Some people also should have their medications, their hearing aids, whatever they think they're going to need in an emergency. And that again goes for earthquakes as well. Okay, dual purposes here. If there's an active fire, you're going to call 911. If it's a small teeny weeny fire that you can go with a towel, different story. Don't try to put out a big fire. Again, you are more important than that fire. Remember that. Things can be replaced. Okay, you don't want to spend weeks and months in a hospital, I don't think. And that's a way of preserving your health. Okay, can we see the next slide, please? Okay, we're going to address that in a second because I thought somebody else came after that.
I'm going to get back to those 2 little fingers in a minute.
Okay, we're going to go to an electrical burner. You can go to that right now. Yeah.
I want to talk to you. I know we just touched on electrical burns, but this here is an electrical burn. And what happened is he touched a hot wire and the electricity went in his finger, traveled along the bone on the arm, back down again, and came out the other finger. That's what electrical burns do. They don't go into the bone, but they'll damage, as that electricity is traveling along the bone, it damages tissues and muscles and tendons and veins and arteries, whatever the hell you have in there. These 2 fingers are gone because that's what electrical burns do.
And sometimes an electrical burn will go in your finger, across your chest, and out the other arm, out the back of your head. If
That electricity needs a place to escape.
Right. And remember, if you see someone who is electrocuted.
You see you're out for a walk and there's been a big accident, you see somebody laying on the ground and you want to help, and next to them is this wire that's sparking it. Don't help. You're only going to make it worse because you're going to get electrocuted. Wait, call 911, wait for responders. They know what they're doing.
If you do see an electrical burn and they have gotten away from the cause of the electrical burn, check their heart, check their respirations, okay? Your heart is an electrical object and that can be stopped. It can be stopped totally. It can go into an arrhythmia. So you're going to want to hopefully do CPR, okay? That's one of the reasons it's so important to call 911 immediately, because if you don't know how to do CPR, they will know how, but it does affect the heart as well, okay? No matter how minor a burn is, when Edison calls us and says one of their gentlemen has gotten a burn, we will always see them in the emergency room, and 9 times out of 10, we will admit them overnight just to make sure their heart's okay.
Because your heart runs on its own electrical pattern. And if the electricity enters your body, it could do damage to your heart. And that electrical pattern that your heart runs on is damaged and won't work right anymore.
Next slide, please, if there's a next slide. Okay.
Okay, let's talk about a minute about contact burns. This foot you're looking at now, this person went outside barefooted and stepped on a grate, and that's the burn. That's a 3rd-degree burn. It's going to take forever and a few surgeries to heal because it's on the foot. Always, never run out to your mailbox without your shoes. Always keep your feet covered. If you have a grate in your bathroom, sometimes the heat is in the bathroom or on the floor. Be very careful when the heat is on that you don't step on that.
With summer coming, many of us have grandchildren. If you go to a park, remember, even though the metal slides are gone, even though the swings are gone, metal ones, you still have things that can overheat. I do not take my grandkids to the park if the temperature is over 90. If you touch the slide before you let them slide down, kids immediately take their shoes off when they get to a park. Always touch that foam rubber
Blah, blah stuff.
that they have on, because that also can overheat. So be very, very careful with small children in parks. Be careful of sitting on I'm not gonna go
Bench.
on a, we're not gonna go there, but be careful if you're sitting on a bench that is made out of
I
metal.
have
as
to go
well.
there. We had this homeless lady who had nothing on but her skirt and she sat on a hot bench. So I don't have to tell you the damage where it was.
Okay. So she went there. I didn't remember that, everyone. Okay. With summer approaching, we also barbecue a lot. Okay. I prefer briquettes, although my husband thought I should have propane. Propane scares me. I don't know why. If you're using
Why?
briquettes,
Because you're a burner.
and because I burn myself, be careful when you're using any form of a barbecue. Briquettes, we get that accelerant, we go, and we pour it on the briquettes, we light it up, it goes, and then we look at it and it doesn't seem to be going fast enough. And if you're impatient, then you get that accelerant again and you go,
And it goes because as you're spraying it on those charcoals, the flame is traveling up towards that can and is going to hit the can and explode. So you're either going to toss it on the crowd that's behind you or you're going to get burned yourself.
or people next to it may also get burnt. And that's why we always say, make sure small children are not near the barbecue, be it propane or briquettes, and that you have a water source handy. If you're using propane, make sure you turn off totally, tightly, because if you just leave a little crack of it open, that the fumes then collect underneath the lid, and then the person who opens it and starts it up can get a burn. How do I know this? Because smart, intelligent, beautiful women have smart, intelligent children. And my daughter did not turn off her propane totally. And when her brother went to start it up, he no longer had eyebrows for several months. Next slide, please. This gentleman, and you can address it here, I'm sorry. This gentleman was one of our patients and was a lovely, well-loved man by his friends and his family both. His name. He was, Frank, okay, I'm sorry. Right, okay, a senior moment, people. Do we all understand senior moments? So Frank decided that he wanted to get rid of propane and he wasn't quite sure whether the tank was empty or not. So he took it into a shed away from everybody, not realizing there was a pilot light in the shed, and the pilot light and the escaping propane got together and there was an explosion. And he was admitted to the burn center for several weeks and had to endure several weeks of surgery. And he survived, but believing, I think he would have had the others, he would have done it out in the open, not near a pilot light. So always be aware of your surroundings, people. Brilliant, beautiful women and men have done things that have caused them to get burned. And we don't want you to be part of that. Next slide, please. If your children, your grandchildren, and I'm going to address this in a minute, have all learned to stop, drop, and roll. This is what we're taught in schools. You stop what you're doing. You drop to the ground and you roll on the ground to stop the flames. If your clothes catch fire and you decide to run, you have caused your own Santa Ana condition. So now this is on fire and it goes, okay? You're going to stop, you're going to drop, you're going to roll, you're going to smother. Those are the things you're going to do, unless.
You know, I can stop, drop, and roll, but you know what? I really can't get up. So instead of stop, dropping, and roll, I stop and I roll against a wall, but I'm making sure there's no curtains or anything that can catch on fire. And you just roll against that wall. If you got big boobs, it's a little more difficult. You have to press harder, but that should do the trick too.
If you have a swimming pool and it's close to you, walk to it and jump in. That also will help put the fire out. In this packet, it'll tell you to grab a wool blanket or a rug that's flame resistant. Okay, I don't know how many of you know what's flame resistant in your house. I don't. I did speak to a fireman friend of mine, and he said, grab whatever you can. And you can wrap it around you, smother what's there, and then drop it. Okay, remember to take off whatever clothes are have been burnt as well. You don't want to keep the heat in. I think that may be it. Next slide, please.
I want to talk about burns. Burns are progressive in nature, and by that I mean you get burned Saturday, and it's not too bad. You know, you cool it off with your water or whatever. But Sunday morning you wake
That's
up
not the right slide.
and you
You know,
Next slide,
it's the
please.
slide before this, actually. That's
Okay.
the slide.
the
Area doesn't look too bad.
area doesn't look too bad, but if you look at the other hand,
The next slide.
the next slide, right, that's the other hand. 24 hours later, the burn has progressed to a 3rd degree burn. Where yesterday it was 1st and 2nd degree burns,
Looking.
it progressed to 3rd degree
Next
degree
slide, please.
burns. And you need to take care of that. First of all, it's in the hand. You don't want it to heal by itself because then your fingers will contract and you'll have a claw hand. You need to have follow-up on that. Always remember, burns are progressive in nature. So if you get burnt one day, don't forget to re-examine it.
Which is the importance of undressing the area, washing it, and reassessing it. Next slide, please.
This here is one of our favorite patients. Her name is Sabeda, and Barbara's going to tell you.
Can we have the next, is there a next? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Zubaydah was burned right after 9/11. So the American Army troops were in Afghanistan. Zubaydah got burned with a kerosene lamp, and her father took her to the local hospital, Shaman, and was told to take her home and let her die, that there was nothing further they could do for her. In the first picture, you can see actually this is an untreated burn where she melted into herself, pulling down her mouth, pulling down her eyelids, okay, and pulling in her arms.
Sabeda could not lift her arms. She could not close her mouth to eat, and she couldn't close her eyes to sleep.
Several surgeries later, and the first one was really traumatic, which we won't again go into, but her first surgery loosened her neck, and she had several surgeries.
We had her with us for 1 year. The government only let her stay with us for 1 year, and she had probably 3 surgeries a week.
This middle one is what she basically looked like when she went back to Afghanistan. She did come back again, but this is what she looked like when she went back to Afghanistan. A beautiful young woman. She had a neck, she was able to eat, drink, and move her arms. The third picture is Zubaydah.
Now, Sabeda is back in Afghanistan, lives with her husband and has a few children and is having a good life.
Now, are we going to tell you she has no scars? Of course we're not, okay? But
Look at the difference.
she's healthy.
That's the kind of work that the Children's Burn Foundation and the Grossman Burn Foundation do. They bring these children or adults, whoever needs it, and you can't afford it, they bring them to us and we get to help them.
Next slide, please. Okay, again, this is the Grossman Burn Foundation. If you want the packet and the oven stick, please get in touch with www.grossmanburnfoundation.org. If there is any questions about the burn you're looking at and you want advice, the Burn Center, and you can't even see it on the slide, is 818-87, I forget the number, 87177. Hold a second, guys. I have been retired for a few years. It's 818-676-4177. Right, that's the number for the Burn Center, and they're open 24/7. If they feel you need to be seen by the outpatient clinic, they will transfer you to them. But to want to have questions answered, that's one of the phone numbers you can call. Are there any questions, comments, or as my psych teacher would say from nursing school, or snide remarks? We would appreciate it.
Remember, if you have any problems at all, feel free to contact us.
Well, it's